While the work of kings such as Harren Hoare cannot be understated, when the name Hoare is mentioned, there is one king, one man, who comes to the forefront even hundreds of years later. So deep is his infamy. We are of course talking about Harren the Black, the last king of House Hoare, and the last king of the Isles and Rivers. Sadly, history does not document much of his early life, but what we do know is Harren was the grandson of King Harren Hardhand, who extended the Ironborn rule over the Riverlands from the Neck to the Blackwater Rush. Harren had an unnamed brother who by the time of Aegon's conquest had become the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Why and when his brother joined the Watch is not known, but it is likely doing so allowed him to avoid the fiery fate of his kin. Harren's reign, from what we know of it, was a bloody one. Even in comparison to the centuries of Ironborn kings before him, he was said to be a vain, bloody tyrant hated by all those he ruled, not just in the Riverlands, but in the Iron Islands as well, as like his father and grandfather, Harren spent much more time in the Greenlands than on the Isles or even at sea. While his grandfather and father had ruled their large kingdom from a modest tower house in the town of Fairmarket, Harren dreamed of something far grander for his seat, a castle of the like that had never been seen in Westeros before, and has never been attempted since. Construction of this grand castle of Harrenhal took nearly 40 years to complete. The Riverlands, the Iron Islands, and lands further beyond were drained of their resources and wealth to finance the building of the monstrous castle on the shores of the God's Eye. While historians don't go as far as calling it slave labour, Harrenhal was raised by men mostly made captive by Harren, with thousands said to have died in the quarries, chained to sledges, or labouring on the towering walls and 5 huge towers that make up the castle. For many, he committed a sacrilegious act, cutting down the better part of a godswood to use the weirwood for rafters and beams. Harrenhal was designed to be immensely strong, with the tallest curtain wall and towers ever seen in Westeros. The walls were not only tall, but incredibly thick, and its rooms are built on a scale that would be more comfortable for giants. Harrenhal hosts the largest chamber in Westeros, called the Hall of 1,000 Hearths, even larger than the throne room of the Red Keep. The castle was chosen as the location of the Great Council of 101 AC because it was not known how many lords would attend, and space was needed for at least 500 lords and their entourages. In total, more than 1,000 came. The castle covers 3 times as much ground as Winterfell, and its buildings are so much larger that they can scarcely be compared. Its stables can house up to 1,000 horses. Its godswood covers 20 acres, and its kitchens are as large as the Great Hall of Winterfell. Even before construction was finished, Harrenhal was a sight to behold, akin to the likes of the Wall in the north, or the High Tower in the south. Harrenhal was built on this gigantic scale, with its colossal curtain walls, sheer and high as a mountain cliff, while atop the battlements, the wood and iron scorpions seemed as small as their namesakes when seen from the gates below. The gatehouse itself was as large as Winterfell's Great Keep. In the year 2 BC, Harren finally completed his grand castle, in many places with the finishing touches finally being added. But in principle, Harrenhal, after 40 long years, an unthinkable amount of resources and gold, and countless lives lost, was completed. But it did not last long, as Harren's dream would turn to ash. Aegon Targaryen, Lord of Dragonstone, landed in Westeros to the south of Harrenhal, on the site that would become King's Landing. After taking some time to consolidate his position, he sent Visenya Targaryen with her dragon Vhagar to the Vale, Rhaenys Targaryen, her dragon Meraxes, and Orys Baratheon to the Stormlands to deal with the Storm Kings of House Durrandon, and Aegon himself moved for the Riverlands, and thus began the conquest. Harren's men harassed Aegon's line of march as they approached the God's Eye in the Battle of the Reeds, with Aegon easily pushing back Harren's men. But later at the Battle of the Wailing Willows, 2 of Harren's sons were victorious, for a time at least. While they were returning to Harrenhal across the God's Eye, the sons were killed by Aegon's monstrous dragon, Balerion the Blackdread. The issue Harren faced was his decades of tyrannical rule over the Riverlands had earned him little love from his lords. In fact, some were all too keen to rally to Aegon's banner. As Aegon advanced towards Harrenhal, many of the river lords, led in principle by Lord Edmund Tully, revolted against Harren to support the Targaryen invader and join the Conqueror's host. Harren took refuge in his well-stocked Harrenhal. Harren could sit behind his huge walls for months, maybe even years, waiting for reinforcement from the Iron Islands, or at least that is what he believed. Aegon was of a different mind, however. Once he had joined his power with that of Edmund Tully and the other river lords to ring in the castle, Aegon and a maester approached the gates of Harrenhal under a peace banner at a parley. Harren emerged to meet him, an old man and grey, yet still fierce in his black armour. Each king had a banner bearer and his maester in attendance, so the words that were exchanged are still remembered. "Yield now," Aegon began, "and you may remain as Lord of the Iron Islands. Yield now, and your sons will live to rule after you. I have 8,000 men outside your walls. What is outside my walls is of no concern to me," said Harren. "Those walls are strong and thick, but not so high as to keep out a dragon," Aegon said. "Dragons fly. I built in stone," Harren replied. "Stone does not burn." To which Aegon said, "When the sun sets, your line shall end." It is said that Harren spat at that and returned to his castle. Once inside, he sent every man of his to the parapets, armed with spears and bows, promising lands and riches to whichever one of them could bring down Balerion the Black. "Had I a daughter, the Dragon Slayer could claim her," Harren proclaimed. "Instead, I will give him one of Tully's daughters, or all three if he likes, or maybe pick one of Blackwood's whelps, or Strong's, or any girl born of these traitors of the Trident, these lords of yellow mud." Then Harren retired to his tower, surrounded by his household guard, to sup with his remaining sons. As the last light of the sun faded, Harren's men stared into the gathering darkness, clutching their spears and crossbows. When no dragon appeared, some may have thought that Aegon's threats had been hollow, but Aegon Targaryen took Balerion up high, through the clouds, up and up, until the dragon was no bigger than a fly upon the moon. Only then did he descend, well inside the castle walls. On wings as black as pitch, Balerion plunged through the night, and when the great towers of Harrenhal appeared beneath him, the dragon roared his fury, and bathed them in black fire, shot through with swirls of red. Stone does not burn, Harren had boasted, but his castle was not made of stone alone. Wood and wool and hemp and straw, bread and salted beef and grain, it all took fire. Nor were Harren's iron men made of stone. Smoking, screaming, shrouded in flame, they ran across the yard and tumbled from the walkways to die upon the ground below. And every stone will crack and melt if fire is hot enough. The river lords outside the castle walls said later that the towers of Harrenhal glowed red against the night like 5 great candles, and like candles they began to twist and melt as runnels of molten stone ran down the sides. Harren and his last sons died in the fires that engulfed his monstrous fortress that night. House Hoare effectively died with him, and so too did the Iron Islands hold on the Riverlands. The next day, outside the smoking ruins of Harrenhal, King Aegon accepted an oath of fealty from Edmund Tully, the Lord of Riverrun, and named him Lord Paramount of the Trident. The other river lords did him homage as well, to Aegon as king, and Edmund Tully as their new liege lord. When the ashes had cooled enough to allow men to enter the castle safely, the swords of the fallen, many now shattered or melted, or twisted into ribbons of steel by dragonfire, were gathered up and sent back to the Aegon fort in wagons. And with that ended House Hoare, and the last of the kings of the Isles and Rivers. But the downfall of one house sees the rise of another, and now was the time once more for House Greyjoy to rise.